What is love? Now, if you do a quick internet search, you're going to find pages and pages and mountains of ideas about what love is. There are 3 names for love. There are 5 love languages. There's 7 layers of love, and there are 8 types of love. Love, 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 love. We love to talk and write about love. But all of those ideas, save one, are mere fraction of what love is. All of them are isolated frequencies of the one radiant source. Love is like light passing through a prism. When a bright white light hits a prism, it is bent and separated into its different frequencies of color. Likewise, when love passes through the prism of our human consciousness, it gets bent and distorted and comes out in many different ways. And it's a mere fraction of what love really is. It's sent through that filter of our experience and our belief system. And it becomes that way because we've been raised in a society where love is limited, where love is a commodity, where love is a thing that we're doing for each other, things that we're passing to one another, where love is negotiated, where love is conditional. I'll love you if you send me flowers every Friday. I'll love you if you agree with everything that I have to say. And love has also become the idea of what we need the most. You know, the human being needs love. And we're so bereft of love, we can't find love anywhere. And we're so starving for love. And it's all because that's the belief that we grew up with. That's what society and culture dictated to us. It told us you're not worthy of love from each other, let alone from God. But love is not a commodity. Love is not negotiated. Love is not conditional. Pure love is the allness of who you are. It's already there. Charles Fillmore, one of the co-founders of the Unity movement, once defined love as the pure essence of being. It's the universal, it's the harmonizing power in the universe that brings us all together as one human family. It's the harmonizing principle of the universe that binds together all of the ideas, all of the thoughts, all of the things in the world. Love is that spiritual energy of God that flows through us. It is spirit in expression. And love is your secret, hidden spiritual power, your superpower. Love is my superpower. Would you affirm that with me together? Love is my superpower. Oh, it's better than in the morning. We're getting warmed up. That's good. That's good. Love is my superpower. Together, love is my superpower. Yes, yes. Jesus was the master teacher of love. That love was the foundation of all of his teachings. And it was very interesting on his last trip to Jerusalem. This is during the Holy Week on Tuesday. He was holding court with all of the lawyers and the chief priests and the elders, and they were all in a discussion and in a debate, and they were all testing him. That sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it? Who wants to do that? So test after test after test he was receiving, and each one he would turn into a spiritual truth. And this is a story that has been described in Matthew 22, and I want to read just one section of it from verse 34. When the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, an expert in the law, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, which commandment is the greatest law? Now, Jesus was always loving, always answering lovingly, although sometimes a little impatient. But he was always answering lovingly, and he was always creating spiritual truth out of the tests. He was turning the tests into some spiritual truth that they didn't have anything to go on. They're just like, oh, okay, I got you. And so what Jesus said to him then was, You shall love your God with all of your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. The greatest and the first commandment. Now notice, he didn't add any conditions to it. He didn't say, love God if, and how many prayers, God, I'll really love you. If you grant me this, then I'll really believe. It's like we're trying to extort God. God, if you really loved me, you would do this for me. There was none of that. There was just, he wasn't looking at it through the lens of his human consciousness, through the lens of those fractional components of love, which are all nice, right? That's how our human mind starts to process things. But he was looking at from a deeper experience. He was looking behind the prism of the human consciousness. He was looking at the one radiant source. Unconditional love, agape love, divine love. However you want to put it, that's the radiant source that is within you. As he taught, that is the kingdom of God that's already within you. That's the love that is already present within you. Express that. Let that be what you bring forward into the world. Excuse me, the Jesuit priest, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, talked about love and defined it as the totalization of life, the allness of life. Give expression to that kind of love. What would that look like in your life if you approached it more from that perspective? Jesus went on to say, this is the first commandment, and the second commandment is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Ooh, Lordy, everyone take a deep breath. Because in that idea, to love your neighbor as yourself, you must first love yourself. So it's not an if, and, or but. And it's not conditional. It's the idea of just simply love. The divine idea of love. The totalization of life. And love is the harmony within every relationship in its right relationship. So as we look at our relationships, as we look at our experience of Christmas, as we look at our experience of the holidays and all of the traffic, have you noticed, and all of the lines and everything and the nerves, and people are starting to get a little pent up. As you start to notice them, remember to look back at that experience of that idea of that everlasting love. Love establishes all healing within you. Love establishes and is the foundation of all forgiveness within you. Love is what establishes peace and generates joy within you. It is that spiritual energy, the energy of spirit, that is always flowing, always available, and always within you. Eric Butterworth, in his book, Practical Metaphysics, Eric was a Unity minister and author. He once wrote, "The manner in which you treat the neighbor comes out of the esteem in which you hold for yourself. You cannot know and love another person truly unless you know and love yourself. Be loving to your neighbor out of the overflow of your own innate sense of self-love." When we are feeling the opposite of love, and we know what that looks like, don't we? When we're feeling the opposite of love, we are out of sync. We're out of sync with life. We're out of the flow of life. And we feel that. We may not draw the correlation, but that's what happens. And I love how Eric Butterworth puts it, we're out of the cosmic rhythm, and the divine process of the universe. We're not in tune with the energy and the power that enables you to live fully and abundantly, because we're just simply out of sync. And so we need to get back to that idea, back behind our human consciousness, to our spiritual consciousness, the idea of divine love that is within us all the time. Give expression to that. How? Anybody want to take over for me? Well, let's start by being loving kindness. When Jesus said, love thy neighbor as yourself, he wasn't speaking to one of the many human experiences of love, right? He wasn't saying, go love your neighbor, be in love with your neighbor, go, supplicate yourself to the neighbor. He wasn't talking about those acts, those simple things that we begin to distill love into, fractionalize love into. Rather, he was speaking from that agape love, from that divine love within you. Love your neighbor. And he was saying more, be a loving presence. Be a loving presence to yourself. Be a loving presence to your neighbor. He was saying, act in a loving manner towards yourself and towards your neighbor. And so the focus isn't on the neighbor. Oh, man. The focus isn't on those knuckleheads out there. That's a Jesus word. It's a spiritual knucklehead. I'm very certain he said that. It was defined as, oh, ye of little faith. I translate that into, oh, you spiritual knuckleheads. The focus isn't on your neighbor. It isn't on the doing. It's not how they're acting towards you. It's not what you are doing to them. The emphasis is simply on you. Let's see if I have another Butterworth quote here. Love is keeping the flow of the cosmic process. Keeping in the flow of the cosmic process. That's all that it is. Love is keeping in the flow of the cosmic process. It is letting your light shine and keeping your light turned on. It is keeping your light turned on not because the world needs your light, and it probably does. It's keeping your light on not because your family needs your light, and it probably does. But it's keeping your light on because you need your light on. It is keeping you focused and in that flow of the cosmic process of love. Excuse me. And so it's about your attitudes. It's about your perception. It's about the way you see yourself, not them. Love is not bestowed upon you, and love is not bestowed upon them. Love is within you. Love is ever present. Love is the experience that you can create. It's the experience that you are creating. And so when you're focused on that divine love within you, you are creating your experience regardless of what's going on around you. Now, you may have heard it said that love is not boastful, love is not envious, love is not arrogant, love is not irritable. Love is not rude. Everyone take a nice deep breath. Love does not try to manipulate. Love does not seek fault and failure. Love is not limited by your consciousness of not enough. Love overcomes all of those things. So when you find yourself upset by someone else and their behaviors, because they're being boastful, envious, arrogant, irritable, and rude, or when you find yourself boastful, arrogant, ignorant, or what was it? Envious, irritable, rude, blaming, manipulating, finding fault, when you find yourself there, you are out of sync of love. That's the time when you find yourself there. Catch those words. When you find yourself there, when you awaken to yourself there, just simply know, oh, I'm out of sync. I'm out of the flow. No big whoop. Right? We don't need to pile on the blame and shame and guilt, the BSG. We don't need to pile that on. Just notice when you're in it and say, oh, I'm going to get out of that. I mean, who needs BSG in their diet? None of us. We don't need any more BSG, blame, shame, and guilt. So get rid of it out of your diet. All you need to do is focus on you and not what the other people are worried about. So when you find yourself there, become aware of the experience that you're having. Recognize that you are out of the flow of love and take time to become centered in the consciousness of love. Now, it may take simply a mindful breath to bring us back. Wouldn't that be wonderful? It may take a 20-minute walk. Sorry, I've got to work off this frustration in me. Or it may even be a constant daily practice. a consistent daily practice. One of my practices is, because, when asked by Peter, Jesus, how many times do I have to forgive this guy? 7 times? Once a week? Jesus said, no, 70 times 7, which means it's a continual process. So my everyday practice at the end of the day is to say, okay, who have I put out of my heart? My practice is when I find myself in there, how can I bring that sense of love and safety, divine love in me, God's love in me, and presence myself in that wonderful energy of spirit. And once I'm presenced, simply apply the overflow of that love to that person. That's all that we need to do. That's what forgiveness is. That's what true forgiveness is. It's when we heal our own heart. And so take a moment to get back into the flow of that cosmic process. Consciously step into the flow of divine love. Let's go to our first affirmation, Felix. And our first affirmation is, wait for it. How would you expect to pay for it? Don't answer yet. God is love, and I am that love expressing, thank you. God is love, and you probably need me to tell him. God is love, and I am that love expressing in, through, and as my loving heart. So let me hear that again. God is love, and I am expressing it, and I am that love expressing in, through, and as my loving heart. It has nothing to do with all of those spiritual knuckleheads out there. It has nothing to do with people wanting, believing in what I believe. It's nothing to do with people being irritable out there. It has everything to do with me in here. So let's affirm this together. God is love, and I am that love expressing in, through, and as my loving heart. And so it is. Be loving kindness. There are 3 fallacies and 3 practices. You may have heard it said, love is blind. You may have heard it said, love is without wisdom sometimes, and love sometimes doesn't have very much intelligence in it. And that's only because we're looking at that love through that human consciousness, a small fraction of divine love. Because divine love is ever present. The Spirit of God, the energy is always present within you, as you, working through you all of the time. That's what grace is. Thank you, God. For when I don't recognize it, it's still there. So divine love is not blind. My human consciousness becomes blind. Divine love is not without wisdom. Infinite wisdom is always available. Divine love is not without intelligence, for that intelligence knows its perfect work in, through, and as me in every moment of the day. So 3 ways in which we can express our loving kindness. How will you be loving kindness today? Butterworth tells a story, a very quick story, where he's talking about 2 men. They're very good friends, best friends. They went to college together. One of them moved to the West Coast, and one of them was on the East Coast. And the one on the East Coast was working away, and he had this experience in life that was incredible, that was different, that was unique, that was different. And he wanted to express that to the world. So he calls his friend on the West Coast that's a writer, and the writer went to work and started working on it. And some of the details that came out of that work, the person on the East Coast looked at and said, well, wait a minute. If I publish this is going to be hurtful to some people and their families. So let's back off on this. And there was a great creative debate. You know those debates. I'm right, you're wrong, this is the right way to do it, this is not the right way to do it. Well, they separated, they were angry with each other, and the person on the East Coast was holding that anger in him. How can he not listen to me? Why doesn't he hear what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden he realized, oh, wait a minute, I'm holding on to the anger. All of this frustration, all these sleepless nights are me. I need to let go of it. And so all he did was simply, the first practice was put himself in that consciousness of love. Set aside the book, set aside the arguments, set aside the disagreements, and put yourself in that ever-presence, that wonderful energy of divine love, that harmonizing energy that's moving in, through, and as you. And it took some time. It wasn't just a mindful breath. It took some time until he could Be simply in that love and feel it and experience it and feel the gratitude, feel the appreciation for life, feel the appreciation for his friend. And he simply surrounded his friend in that love. He didn't send any messages, any hidden messages. He didn't try to think, you need to think about it this way. All he did was hold that person in consciousness, in the consciousness of love. Just hold that person. And within 48 hours, there was a note coming from the other person that says, you know what? I'm sorry. I can't believe that I, went off that way and got so defensive. Thank you for holding to your principles. Thank you for, standing strong in your end. Let's get together and let's see how we can work through it. And they did. So that first principle of simply immersing yourself in love and sending that energy, the overflowing energy, out into the world, out into the people that you have put out of your heart, that's your first practice. The second practice is how might you express it personally. There's a wonderful congregant, I think she's wonderful, in our audience who is going through a very difficult time dealing with a probate of her sister. And it's very complicated. The sister once lived in one state and then California and then back in Germany, and so there's all different jurisdictions. She's been sent from court to jurisdiction, getting paperwork from across the seas, paying all this money, having to go drive down to San Jose to get to that court to see if that will work. And so she drives to the San Jose court and she finds the handicap parking and she parks there. She gets out of the car and there's the building right in front of her, but there's a gate in front of her. She can't get there. She's like, okay, that's cool. Maybe there's another entrance. So she walks this way. She walks around the buildings. I don't know if you know how big these downtown buildings are in San Jose. That is not a small walk. That's not a walk around the park. This is a long walk. So she finally gets to the front. She goes in. She goes to the clerk, and nope, you have the wrong papers. This is what you need. That's what you need. Can you sense the frustration that might be building in her? Can you sense the frustration that might be building in you? Have you ever had that kind of experience? 3 people. Great. Okay, I'm going to talk to you from now on. We've all had that in some form or another, right? That energy where things just don't seem to be going our way. We're out of the flow. So she's walking out of the building and she turns to go to her car, which is right on the other side of the fence. And she stops, takes a breath, and notices there is a group of police officers there. And she says, will one of you please, there's my car in the handicap parking lot. Will one of you please unlock the gate so I can go through? And the person in charge said, yes, I will go do that. And so she goes and he unlocks the gate and she starts to walk through and she's hit. She's hit by that inspiration of love. She stops and she turns around and looks at the officer and says, where does your mother live? And he says, well, my mother has passed away. And she said to him, well, then she knows what a precious son she has. What a precious son she has. Tears started coming to the officer's eyes. And she said, may I give you a hug? And he said, yes. And they hugged. And there was a perfect, beautiful moment of expressing love. And then she walked away and went on her way. How will you express love today? Unconditional love. Now, I don't know if I can go to a police officer and give them a hug and have those same words and have them tear up. I don't know if that's my persona, that's my place, but each of us has our own unique way of expressing that divine love, of expressing that unconditional love. Not trying to solve anything, not trying to fix anybody, not trying to get our way, just being that loving presence. And so that's our second and our third practice. The third practice is let go. When you cannot, you have to let go of the story. Just let go and turn it over to God, as they say. I let go and I let God. I let that higher power take over the details because they're not mine to own. And as I let go, I begin to free myself of the story internally. I begin to free myself and make space, a little crack of faith, so that Spirit can move in and begin to establish peace within me. I let go and allow that loving energy to bubble up within me so that I can experience the ever-present love of God. Let's move to our second affirmation, Felix. Divine love centered in me is my superpower. I am a loving blessing to the world. Together, divine love centered in me is my superpower, and I am a loving blessing to the world. And so it is.